Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're looking at something that is, frankly, profoundly significant. Human innovation has just crossed this massive threshold. Think about it. For basically the entirety of human history, we've essentially been tool builders, right? Forging iron, harnessing steam, splitting atoms. But recently, we've transitioned from merely building tools to literally hacking the very building blocks of reality itself. We are now rewriting the code of software, the actual DNA that makes up life, the climate that sustains our whole planet, and even the fundamental rules of warfare.
So let's dive into this with a question that should honestly give all of us pause. If we now possess the capability to effortlessly edit the code of artificial intelligence and the biological code of life, what exactly happens when we try to scale that up? What happens when we try to edit the Earth's climate or rewrite the established rules of life and death on the battlefield? We're playing with some truly profound, godlike powers here. And the stakes? Well, they literally could not be higher.
And that brings us to the core concept we really need to wrap our heads around today. It's called the dual-use dilemma. Basically, this is a phenomenon where unprecedented, highly powerful technologies hold both this miraculous promise of solving our absolute greatest challenges, but simultaneously carry the peril of catastrophic or even existential risks. It is a total razor's edge between utopia and catastrophe.
So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to explore 4 distinct frontiers of this new innovation. First up, AI and the cyber paradox. Second, CRISPR and editing human code. Third, solar geoengineering. And finally, the rise of algorithmic warfare. Let's get into it.
Frontier number 1, AI and the cyber paradox.
Now, behind the explosive rise of generative AI that we've all been seeing, the cybersecurity implications are just staggering. Just look at the sheer velocity of the research happening right now. Back in 2022, a systematic review found a mere 7 documents in major databases focusing on generative AI and cybersecurity. 7. By 2023, that number jumped to 435. And in 2024, a massive 1,848 documents. I mean, that is an exponential upward curve. What this tells us is that the global security community is suddenly scrambling to understand a technology that is evolving way faster than we can natively track. And here is our first dual-use dilemma. On one hand, we have this incredible promise, right? Generative AI can automate threat detection, analyze vulnerabilities in source code, and fortify cyber defenses much faster than any human team ever could. But, on the exact same token, the peril is that these identical models are being leveraged by malicious actors. We're seeing the automation of malware creation, the deployment of hyper-realistic deepfakes, and massive data poisoning. It's a classic case of the sword cutting both ways.
Let's look at 3 concrete, cascading risks from recent research that perfectly illustrate this danger. First up, data poisoning. A 2022 study by Jordan and colleagues showed how attackers can deliberately corrupt training data so that, say, a customer service chatbot secretly outputs biased or toxic responses to specific trigger words. Crazy, right? Second, model stealing. Researchers actually proved they could extract a company's proprietary marketing AI simply by submitting strategic queries to its public interface and literally copying its behavior. And third, adversarial attacks. Researchers completely bypassed content filters on an image generation model just by adding hidden, totally imperceptible noise to a text prompt, tricking it into creating inappropriate content. The vulnerabilities are baked right into the system itself.
Moving right along to the second frontier, CRISPR and editing human code.
Okay, so shifting gears from the digital realm to the biological realm, we have CRISPR, which essentially acts as a programmable text editor for our DNA. And this brings us to another really profound dilemma. The promise here is nothing short of miraculous. I mean, in 2023, CRISPR was actually approved to treat sickle cell disease. By activating specific proteins in the blood, patients like Victoria Gray have been completely cured of their agonizing crises. We're even looking at reshaping the human microbiome to prevent asthma and autoimmune disorders. But the peril? It's crossing into permanent, heritable germline editing. A really stark example of this happened back in 2018 when an untested procedure was conducted to create HIV-resistant babies, which forever altered the human germline. The line between just treating an illness and permanently enhancing human traits is dangerously blurry.
And that brings us to the third frontier, geoengineering, or hacking the planet.
So, what happens when we take that exact same ambition to engineer reality and we scale it all the way up to the entire Earth's atmosphere? Specifically, we're talking about solar geoengineering. This is the idea of injecting aerosols into the stratosphere to literally reflect sunlight and heat back into space. Now, the promise here is massive. Scientists note it's currently the only known technique to quickly stop or reverse the rise in global temperatures. It could buy us the precious time we need for a massive global decarbonization effort. But the peril is equally massive. If we start this process and then suddenly have to stop, a terrifying scenario known as termination shock, it would trigger rapid, severe global warming. We're talking about destabilizing local and global ecosystems, leading to completely unpredictable climatic chaos.
$10 billion. According to estimates, that is the direct annual cost to deploy solar geoengineering. Now, in the realm of global technologies, $10 billion is shockingly low. To put that into perspective, it is essentially pocket change for a single wealthy country, a small coalition of nations, or honestly, even a single ultra-wealthy individual. And this exceptionally low price tag invites the terrifying risk of rogue unilateral deployment in a totally ungoverned manner. Think about it. One actor could unilaterally change the sky for the entire planet.
Finally, our fourth frontier, the rise of algorithmic warfare.
Where technology and life and death consequences intersect most violently, we find our final dilemma. Here, we're exploring how AI is fundamentally stripping human oversight right out of the rules of combat. The promise, and I'm speaking strictly from a military efficiency standpoint here, is massive scalability. With autonomous weapons, a military can multiply its destructive power immensely without needing to recruit, train, or risk a single additional human soldier. But the peril is a profound, deeply concerning accountability gap. We're delegating lethal force to unpredictable algorithms. We're allowing machines to decide who lives and who dies, completely removing human judgment from the equation.
Let's just walk through how this actually escalates, because believe me, it happens fast. Step 1, unpredictable behavior. In dynamic environments, machine learning systems act in ways we humans just can't foresee. Step 2, accidental escalation. War games conducted by groups like RAND have shown that the sheer speed of autonomous systems leads to inadvertent, super-rapid crisis escalation. Step 3, proliferation. Because these systems don't require rare raw materials, they are incredibly cheap to mass produce. They will inevitably leak onto the black market, falling right into the hands of terrorists and warlords. And step 4, scalable mass destruction. A single person could theoretically activate a swarm of thousands of these drones, entirely lowering the historical barrier to armed conflict.
This quote right here captures the ultimate accountability gap perfectly. Algorithms are incapable of understanding or conceptualizing the value of a human life. By their very nature, autonomous systems violate international humanitarian laws, specifically the principles of distinction, being able to tell a civilian from a combatant, and proportionality. Under what's known as the Martin's Clause, delegating lethal force to a machine completely goes against the baseline dictates of public conscience. A machine cannot feel compassion, and therefore it just cannot justly wage war.
Okay, let's synthesize all of this, because how these frontiers connect is really what you need to take away from this explainer today. Whether we're looking at generative AI malware, CRISPR gene editing, a $10 billion climate hack, or cheap mass-produced autonomous weapons, the through line is exactly the same. The barriers to entry are shockingly low. The technologies are cheap, highly scalable, and super accessible. And the risk of unilateral, rogue deployment is absolutely massive across the board. The traditional world where only superpower nations had world-ending capabilities, that's over. We urgently need a modern global security paradigm that addresses not just the weapons of the past, but the highly accessible algorithms of the present.
Which leaves us staring at this haunting question. As our scientific curiosity continues to unlock these godlike technologies, the ultimate danger isn't necessarily the technology itself. It's us. Can our global governance and our collective wisdom possibly evolve fast enough to govern the immense new power we now hold in our hands? It's a question we absolutely must answer, and our future depends entirely on getting it right. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you next time. Welcome